The next installment of Ten of Swords comes to us in the pages here of Wolverine number 6, and this is absolutely one of the most beautifully drawn, colored, and written comics that I've read in the past year. With that in mind, the next video I do for X-Force number 13 will also have the same creative team. We have Ben Percy writing, Viktor Bogdanovic doing art, Matthew Wilson doing colors, Cory Petit on lettering for this issue. And we open up with a very cool narration. This is the kind of narration that we have come to expect from Wolverine comic books of the past. And so it's a really incredible nod back to the comics of old. For most of us, been to hell and back is just an expression. I know from first-hand experience, this place is the best there is at punishment, by mining the pain already inside you, by accounting for what you owe. Hell is the place the past catches up with you, and I'm here because the past has caught up too. But before we get too much further into this video, I want to invite you to please subscribe to my channel, hit the bell for notifications. I'm going to be covering all of Ten of Swords. You know, I mostly talk about Marvel Comics, but also some indie books, Image, Boom, and some of my favorite writers. I'd love for you to come join me on my comic book journey where I talk about writing and my favorite stories in comic books. So Wolverine seems to be the only one who has a bad feeling about Krakoa. Maybe there's a couple of others when it comes down to it, but it seems like he remembers who and what this island is. Remember that time when Krakoa tried to kill everybody? It makes sense for Wolverine to be on guard because he can smell danger wherever he goes. And he says to Krakoa, "You're the only one whose voice really matters, even when the kings and queens of the Quiet Council are blowing hot air for hours on end. Isn't that right, bub? You wanted the external gate open, which means you wanted war. This place was supposed to be a fresh start for all of us. Yet here you are, dragging us back in time. This ain't the first fight I went into blind, but losing's never been my policy, especially now, because I think we got something here worth fighting for. I really do. So I'm gonna find the Muramasa blade, and I'm gonna make some shit bleed, and I'm gonna win. But I don't ever think I'm gonna trust your green ass." I absolutely love this scene so much because it tells us where Wolverine is in his head. It tells us where he's coming from, and this whole book feels like such a nod to the past, just like so many of these issues far back are respecting all of the Wolverine character development that has come before. Really good stuff. Champions of Krakoa were selected to each retrieve a special sword to participate in a cross-dimensional tournament against the champions of Morocco. Wolverine was one of the chosen. Now he must find the Muramasa blade. Like I said, so many of the Fantastic Wolverine books from the past, they see inside the mind of Logan. And he's talking about his own past. He's talking about channeling his loss into steel. Talking about taking his shattered soul and hammering it into the metal itself, wielding it like an angry god. This is the prose from this book that comes across in kind of a dark poetry. The way the words they're presented, it reflects the mood of this amazing art and coloring. This entire book, it works together in such a powerful way to convey the deep emotional experience that happens inside of Logan. The kind of experiences that we wouldn't be able to see unless we were inside of his mind, his own narration that we see so often in Wolverine books. This book, this entire creative team, it really shows who and what Wolverine is inside. It helps the reader get closer to him than any other depictions that I've seen Logan portrayed in such a long time. Logan is searching for Muramasa, And he, of course, is the one who forged the legendary Muramasa blade. And after a very quick confrontation with the Silver Samurai and a journey to Japan, Wolverine learns of the rumors whispered by beggars on the street, old companions, and even the crows. The rumors of a beast near Haku in a Shinto temple. Extremists from a faction of the Hand who have gone down a dark path. Muramasa apparently has followed them into these depths, where blood-red springs boil, and where a hammer sings against an anvil, and the smoke of a sulphurous forge scents the wind. And Wolverine must find the maker to forge the blade of his destiny, the Muramasa blade. So, back in Morocco, at the Tower of Broken Will, we watch pestilence and war. They're descending into a dungeon. They're discussing the one that they've been held there for 100 years and longer. Apparently, this new character, this new introduced character into Marvel, his name is Solem, and he has killed the husband of War, who, of course, War is the daughter of Apocalypse. And on the white pages of this book, there are so many rumors written about Solem, why he's there, why he killed the husband of War. It possibly was infidelity, maybe just jealousy, a love triangle gone wrong. But the fact remains that Solem is a worthy adversary who's been locked up for a very long time. Solem speaks with such an arrogance and assumed authority over others. He seems like quite the character. Apparently, he's needed to fight as a sword bearer, and he's been tasked with finding the legendary Muramasa blade for the opposition here in Morocco. He's given a Hellblade, and he hasn't been given any context to where the Muramasa blade or where Muramasa could possibly be, and his smug demeanor is very telling of his passion for combat, for killing, just as his passion for hedonism. This will be a good time, getting to know Solem, getting to know his evil, and welcoming it into the pages of Marvel as these tales move forward through the Ten of Swords storyline. We watch Logan as he travels up the mountain to the temple, all the while being followed by the dark agents of the extremists of the Hand. The future trumps history, and the future of mutant kind depends on me tracking down Muramasa. From what I learned, the mutants weren't the only ones in trouble. Something dark had come from Muramasa, something that had been buried a long time. Sometimes, when lightning flashes and thunder follows, folks wonder about the speed of light. But me, I'm always thinking about the speed of dark. It finds the right moment, it can spread fast and strong. This was the right moment. There was a breach between Morocco and Krakoa. There was a breach between Earth and Hell. All the boundaries were getting torn up, and in this mess of shadows and light, past and present, death had come calling for us all. Oh man, I absolutely love the way that symbolism is so rich here in these comparisons between Earth and Hell and Morocco and Krakoa, talking about the past, present, and how death had been the calling card for them. You know, this writing is what I have come to expect from this version of Wolverine. You know, here in the year of our Lord 2020, Percy and Bogdanovic continue to make an incredible force to be reckoned with. They're writing the history of one of the best characters in comic books, our immortal and beloved Logan. You know, my favorite teams right now are Hickman, Larraz, and Gracia working together. We have Cates and Stegman working together, of course, for the next King in Black series. That's going to be fantastic from what I can tell. And of course, now we have Percy and Bogdanovic. Those three teams, they're my favorite love teams in comics that are currently working together. Absolutely love what I've been reading recently. we are left at the end of this book with Wolverine happening upon Muramasa, and he's laid out in a sacrificial inverted pinnacle. This is the dark symbol of the Baphomet, a symbol of hell and of darkness and of demons. And you're left with such a dark feeling. It makes it impossible to not read the next installment of this book. And I love the way that each chapter in the Ten of Swords story, it's very important to the next. We're using multiple writers, of course, and multiple artists. And what's cool is, they're all working together to each kind of forge different chapters of the same story that works in a fluid manner from one to the next. There's a lot of talk about how they communicate with each other. And, for Bogdanovic, they claim has been very good communication between all of the writers who are involved with this series. And I can see that possibly. There's a little bit of discrepancy from book to book. But so far, in Ten of Swords, we see a very coherent storyline. I love how it's put together, kind of different than a lot of Marvel series are. Generally we see some of the crossover events. You could take or leave some of the tie-ins that happen in the series, but with this series, it is literally chapter 1 through 22, or 1 through 25 if you're actually counting properly. But every chapter is continued to the very next part of the story, and this one chapter, number 3, absolutely, again, fantastic, has my highest recommend. And the next book, I read it already, X-Force number 13, has my highest recommend as well. That will be my next video that I'll be putting out, where we find more about Wolverine and his descent back into hell to find the legendary Muramasa blade before Solem finds it. Of course, his new enemy. A little bit more about the way that they've communicated when they've been talking about this series. They're all in a Slack room, and of course that's very similar to Discord, where they're really able to communicate on a deeper level. One of the companies that I work with, we use Slack when we are communicating about our projects. We use it when we're talking about all of our referrals and all of the work that we've been doing extra, to try to drive more traffic to us as a company. And it's been very beneficial. And I can see just so far in the very beginning chapters of this series that is working out for these folks that are writing all of this. So, again, I don't want to sound like I am worshiping or praising certain writers and artists here, but look, Percy and Bogdanovic, they're two of the best in comics right now. They're absolutely superstars, and they're showing their colors to Marvel that they're in it to win it. And again, their writing, their art, absolutely fantastic. This is surpassing my expectations, to be perfectly honest with you. Didn't know what I was going to get into when I agreed to make a video about every single chapter of this story, and so far, I'm absolutely loving it. It's very good. Like I said, I'm excited about this series, Ten of Swords, and I'm loving what I'm reading so far. And this is continuing to appeal to me. And, hey, please subscribe, hit the bell. I'll have that next video up in the next couple of days, I'll always talk about my favorite writers. What is it about them that I love so much? Of course, with this issue, my biggest takeaway was these two, this writer, this artist, they know this character. They know how to rope someone in and get them in a mood. And we're talking about a setting the scene of storytelling. Every single book needs to have its own feel, right? And if we're talking about a Wolverine story, it's got to have the same serious nature that they're conveying when they're talking about his past specifically, when they're referencing the pain that he's been through. So much of the darkness of his past comes from not knowing so much, from losing so many loves, from seeing those that he loves die over time. There's almost a Highlander feel that you get from this book specifically. You know, when he's looking at his previous rivals and the anger and the rage that comes over him, it shows us his emotion, not just in the pages and the art, but in the writing as well. And so this kind of enrichment that you see in this book, it's exactly what we need for Wolverine. Again, I gotta say this is a 9 out of 10. That's a pretty big praise for me. I'm gonna really enjoy all of this series, and I'm gonna keep this on my pull list, of course. What do you think? I would love to hear what you have to say in the comments below. And hey, hit that bell, hit subscribe, and join me for all of my next videos. I'm going to be talking about 10 of Swords, and I'm even going to be covering the next event, King in Black. I'd love to have you along for the ride. Support your local comic shop. Get up there, buy some comics. You are the gateway into comics.